Hey Jackalls, I'm Simon and today we'll be making a simple 2D scene and it looks something like this. We'll do the scene in DaVinci Resolve 17 and we'll be using shapes. Now let's get digital. This is how the end result looks like. I've done it in the Fusion page and we need a Fusion composition. So go to the media pool, right click, new Fusion composition. You can leave it to default as 5 seconds and you can give it a name. I'll just leave it as is. Then drag it onto the timeline, select it and go into the Fusion page. In Fusion, this is the default toolbar and as I've said, I'll be using shapes and this toolbar doesn't have them. So I have the shape toolbar here, you probably don't have it. I have a video on how to make it, but to access them, go to Effects, Tools, open it and Shapes and you have all of the tools here. Now for this scene, I'll start off with a flower. So maybe in this case, I'll use an S ellipse, I'll be using a star and you'll see why in a second. And to see anything we need render node. So let's start with the base shape of the leaves. With the star shape selected, go to the inspector. We'll change the points from 6 maybe to 8. We'll want to lower the depth and increase the border width. This will give us the petals. So maybe something like that. We'll have to scale this down. So what we can do is type equals here. So we have the width and the height the same. Drag the plus to the height and adjust the height. Now we can adjust the border width. Maybe something like that. Then in the style, we'll simply change the color to what we want. Now we'll use the S ellipse. We can simply bridge these two nodes together. The S ellipse will be on top, which is correct. I'll simply type in equals here again, connect it to the height, make it smaller. And I can also change the color of this one to maybe yellowish. Now the next thing that I'll make is the stem. So for that I'll be using the S ellipse, rectangle and an S boolean. And this will connect here to the merge. And now we can simply connect these two to the S boolean. So the S ellipse will not be solid. So we just need the stem, maybe something like that. Now in this case, the width and the height don't have to be the same. So maybe something like that. So the stem needs to be in the back and I'll fix that in a bit. But first I have to change the shape. So with the rectangle selected, I'll simply adjust it. Then we can go to the S boolean. Now if you change the color here, this won't change it. As you can see, the S boolean will override the color, so I have to change the color of the stem here. And I'll make two leaves and connect them to the actual flower as well. So to make two leaves, I'll simply use an S ellipse and connect it here. I'll scale this like so, just like that, change the color. So I made the flower, but I still need to fix the stem. Now what's the issue? Well, the issue is that this doesn't connect to the background. So how this works, the S merge is basically like layers of paper. So in this case, the star is in the background and this needs to change. So this one has to go to the yellow. Then this one, if we put it here, is not good. So this one has to go to the green one. And then this one will go to this one. Now if you hover over the connections, you'll see that the yellow one is input 1. This means it's the background. Then we have the foreground if we use a normal merge, as you can see. So in this case, this is input 2. Then this should be input 3. This is input 4 and input 5. Now the higher the number of the input, it means that it's on the top. In this case, the leaf is number 5. But that's okay because it doesn't overlap anything. If it was here, that would be incorrect and I would have to change the input. But because it doesn't overlap anything, it can be input number 5. Now we have the flower done, and because we have a lot of nodes, we can simply select all of them, press Ctrl G to group them up, and maybe also press F2 and rename this to flower, just so we know what it is. Now what this flower needs is a background, so I'll be using a normal 2D background without any shapes and connect it after the render node. Switch the inputs around. In the background, I'll choose gradient and I'll go from dark green to a light green. Switch this around. Now we don't want the grass to cover the whole screen, so I'll simply use the rectangle to mask it off. Change the width to be full. We can also adjust the height and position it maybe something like this. So we have the background done. We can add maybe the sky. So let's add another background, and this time this will be the sky. So let's make another gradient, and this one a little bit less blue. And this needs to connect like so. Now the flower is too big, so I'll be using a transfer node to scale it down. I can size it and I can change the position, maybe something like that. Now we want to have a whole field of flowers, and to do that easily, we'll simply use a duplicate node after the transform. So you can select the transform, tap in duplicate, and let's see how many copies we want, maybe 10. We don't see any changes, so simply adjust the center position. Then now we have a bunch of flowers. We can also go to the jitter and adjust the center position here. We can also adjust the angle and maybe change the size a little bit. Now maybe something like this. Next up, I'll make the sun. I'll be using the star shape to make it. And as you can see, I can just connect it to the merge. I need the render node to connect it, and then I can connect this to the merge. So now with the star selected, I'll make, let's see, maybe 14 rays. I'll adjust the depth, and I'll change the border style to this, and adjust the width. So maybe something like that. I can adjust the size with the merge node. And I'll also adjust the position with the merge. Maybe something like that. Now to change the color, I'll simply go to star and change this to a yellow color. Maybe something like that. Now you can add all kinds of effects if you want this. And to animate the star, you can simply go to the beginning and keyframe the angle, and then go to the end and make it spin. Just not too much. So this would be the sun animation. Now what kind of effects you can use? Well, you can use light rays for one. Adjust this point to the center of the sun. If you have the question, why do the rays look off when I have the center point of the rays in the sun? Well, that's because I've actually moved the sun with the merge node. So we can position it back to the center. And now the light rays, as you can see, affect the sun from this location. So just put the merge node in the center, do all of the effects that you want, and then put the merge node back where you want it to be. So maybe something like that. We also have the animation of the sun, and the only thing that we're missing is the shadows of the flower. Now how you can do that is with the mirror node. We'll do this after the transform node because we've changed the position of the flower and we scaled it down. Now it won't connect like this. We need the merge node. This will be in the foreground. This will also go to the background like this, and this will connect to the duplicate. Now if I just use the mirror, now this could work, but we have two issues. One is that the flowers are cut off and we don't have a shade. Now to make a shade, we'll simply use a background node, connect it after the mirrors and into the merge node. Now this changes the color of all the flowers. To fix that, we'll simply flip the inputs in the merge node with Ctrl T. Now to adjust the shade, simply go to the background node and adjust the alpha. Maybe something like that. And to fix the cut issue, go to the render node of the flower and change the height to 1920 by 1920. Now we simply have to adjust the position again with the transform, So I'll put this up. And now in the mirror, we have to make a nice reselection. Now we have some cut issues in the shades. So to fix that, go to the background and also change the resolution to be 1920 by 1920. Now we have some other issues. Go to the mirror and uncheck reflect at borders. Now the last piece of the puzzle is animating the flower. This can be done easily, but if you do, I suggest to do it beforehand, otherwise you'll have to make adjustments again. With the transfer node selected, we want to adjust the pivot point to the bottom of the stem. So adjust the pivot point, and as you can see, this is why you will have to make adjustments again. Maybe something like this. Let's make an adjustment. So we still have some ways to go and a tiny bit to the right, just like that. And now we have to fix the mirrors again. Position them here. Now we maybe have to play around with the duplicate. So the positioning is finally done. Now the last piece of the puzzle is to animate the angle. And because we adjusted the pivot point, the shadow will move with the flower animation. So if you go to something like here, make this the starting angle, make this the ending angle, just like that. Keyframe this again at the same position, make the flower go back a little bit, maybe something like that. That would be for the animation. Now with any kind of animation that you do, you can make it look nicer. So select the node that you want to animate, go to the spline, have this option enabled, so you only see the node that is selected. In this case, I've animated the angle, so I'll select this option, click zoom to fit, and now I could select this node, press S, so I can simply adjust the handle like this. Now this spline shape will make the flower movement look nicer. Now the last thing that you can do is to add some clouds. You can use either the ellipse and the background node to change the color, and then you connect it to the merge, or you use the shape ellipse, render node, and connect it to the merge. It's basically the same thing, it depends on what you want. And then for the animation, you could either animate the center position of the merge, or you can add a transfer node after this, so animate the transfer. And that's how you can make a simple 2D scene in DaVinci Resolve using shapes. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more DaVinci Resolve and video editing content. And if you want today's tutorial files, you can get them by supporting me on my Buy Me a Coffee page. I'm Simon, and until next time, Jackalls, keep it digital.